Red Bull shocked the Formula One world once again, as it has done so many times in its history, with a mid-season driver change after announcing Daniel Ricciardo's comeback to AlphaTauri in place of Nyck de Vries. Ricciardo has lost his McLaren seat at the end of the last season and, finding no option to stay on the grid, signed with Red Bull as a reserve driver. De Vries, meanwhile, had secured what he hoped would be his big Formula One break by taking over the second AlphaTauri seat from the Alpine-bound Pierre Gasly, winning Helmut Marko's preference after an amazing performance at last year's Italian Grand Prix, when the Dutchman replaced Alex Albon on Saturday and led Williams to a highly unexpected points finish on Sunday. De Vries came to Formula One fresh from a successful run that saw him become Formula 2 champion in 2019 and Formula E champion in 2022. He had been a reserve driver for Mercedes, a role that led him to add experience by occasionally driving the Brackley-based squad's cars, but also those of its customer teams Aston Martin and Williams. Helmut Marko had said he expected De Vries to be AlphaTauri's front-runner, putting him ahead of teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who is in his third season in Formula One with the Faenza outfit. However, De Vries did not live up to the expectations that Marko had placed on him, and very early in the season, rumours began to swirl that his seat was in jeopardy, with Marko himself commenting that Red Bull Racing boss Christian Horner had not been supportive of his recruitment. We should also remember that when Gasly announced he would switch to Alpine in 2023, Marko and Horner initially sought to sign IndyCar star Colton Herta, but eventually had to drop the American driver once it became clear that he wouldn't get a F1 Super license. In other words, De Vries had not been Red Bull's first choice and soon found himself on the ropes, although the reality is that he found himself racing for AlphaTauri at one of the worst times since the team was acquired by Red Bull's billionaire founder Dietrich Mateschitz in 2005. Early in the season, it became clear that the squad failed to build a competitive car, which created an internal earthquake when team boss Franz Tost openly criticized the team's engineers in a press conference. However, we cannot ignore that De Vries, for all of his previous experience and pedigree, was unable to emerge as the team leader, being regularly outperformed by Tsunoda, who beat him 8-2 in both qualifying and races, with the Japanese driver giving AlphaTauri its only 2 points of the year and its only 2 Q3 appearances. De Vries' problems created a perfect storm for Ricciardo, who soon seemed to realize that he still had the desire to be a Formula One driver and began to express it publicly, while behind closed doors, he showed Red Bull that he had what it takes, excelling in the team's simulator in Milton Keynes. The icing on the cake came on the Tuesday after the British Grand Prix, when Ricciardo got his first chance to drive the dominant Red Bull RB19 in a Pirelli tyre test at the Silverstone circuit, where 2 days earlier Max Verstappen had taken his 8th win in 10 Grand Prix this year. Ricciardo knew he would be handed the AlphaTauri drive if he proved himself, and so he did, setting a lap time that would put him next to Verstappen in the quali session, prompting a phone call from Horner to Marko to activate the operation De Vries out, Ricciardo in. But while Ricciardo is sure to arrive in the Hungarian Grand Prix paddock next week with his spectacular smile on his face, the challenges ahead for the 8-time Formula One winner are not few. AlphaTauri remains the worst team of the season, and its AT04 Challenger appears to have the same difficulties that made life difficult for Ricciardo last year at McLaren. This is a limited car in the late corner entry phase, which triggers rear end instability. Ricciardo, by contrast, brings out most of his talent when driving a car that allows him to be strong under braking and on corner entry. AlphaTauri brought upgrades to Silverstone to try and correct that critical weakness of the car, but Tsunoda was not impressed, so it remains to be seen what Ricciardo can do if the car does not suit his driving taste. Now, what does Ricciardo's comeback mean for Sergio Perez at Red Bull? Ricciardo has been an ideal driver for Red Bull during his previous stint at the team, which he joined in 2014 when he was promoted from what is now AlphaTauri, formerly known as Toro Rosso. The Honey Badger won 3 races in his first year with Red Bull, on his way to 3rd place in the championship behind Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, and comfortably outperformed his teammate 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel. He continued to enjoy success through the years, most notably winning the Monaco Grand Prix in 2018, but decided to leave the Red Bull camp at the end of that season as he sensed the team was beginning to be shaped around Verstappen. Things didn't work out as Ricciardo had hoped for during his tenure at Renault and McLaren. He's now on a mission to show that he still has what it takes to be a top Formula One driver again, so that Red Bull will once again consider him for their top team, which is his ultimate goal, as Ricciardo himself expressed in the media. This brings us to the other leading actor in this story, Mexico's Sergio Perez, who started the 2023 season in great form with 2 wins in the opening 5 Grand Prix and even seemed to be capable of challenging Verstappen for the championship. However, Checo has failed to reach Q3 in the last 5 qualifying sessions, including 2 Q1 knockouts, which has put the Mexican driver under pressure, although both Horner and Marco say his place is not at risk as long as he maintains second place in the Drivers' Championship. This is because achieving a 1-2 finish is something Red Bull wasn't able to achieve, not even in its prior golden years with Vettel and Mark Webber. A mid-season driver change for Red Bull would end that possibility for the team, but still Checo would need to bring back his A game to clear up any doubts surrounding his contract, which runs until the end of 2024. Red Bull, meanwhile, has in Verstappen the driver who dominates Formula 1, and now also has 2 top drivers who are fast, capable of winning races, and motivated to battle to be the Dutchman's teammate in the leading squad. It's hard to predict what will happen next, but there is no doubt that this will be a story to follow from now until the end of the season. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to The Grid Report, where we bring you all the latest F1 updates.